In a comprehensive medical report released on April 13, 2025, the White House physician Captain Sean Barbabella confirmed that President Donald Trump is in excellent cognitive and physical health following his annual physical examination at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. This report marks a critical moment for the 78-year-old president as it provides the first detailed health assessment since an assassination attempt against him in July 2024. The three-page medical report highlights Trump's robust health profile, detailing that he exhibits robust cardiac, pulmonary, neurological, and general physical function. Barbabella stated President Trump remains in excellent health, exhibiting excellent cognitive and physical health, and is fully fit to execute the duties of the Commander-in-Chief and head of state. This assertion comes at a time when scrutiny over the health of older political leaders is heightened, especially in light of the visible decline experienced by former President Joe Biden during his term. During the nearly 5-hour examination, various tests were conducted, including blood tests, cardiac evaluations, and neurological assessments. The report revealed that Trump weighs 224 pounds, a notable reduction of 20 pounds since 2020, and that his LDL cholesterol levels are now within an optimal range. He is currently prescribed 2 medications for cholesterol management, rosuvastatin and ezetimibe, with the latter being new since his last report. One point of concern noted in the report is the scarring on Trump's right ear, a result of the gunshot wound he sustained during the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. Despite this, Barbabella reported that Trump's hearing remains normal. Additionally, the examination revealed some gastrointestinal issues, including diverticulosis and a benign colon polyp, leading to a recommendation for a follow-up colonoscopy in 3 years. Trump's cognitive abilities were assessed using the Montreal Cognitive Assessment (MoCA), where he scored a perfect 30 out of 30. Following the tests, Trump expressed confidence in his health, claiming, "I took a cognitive test, and I don't know what to tell you other than I got every answer right." This statement reflects not only Trump's self-assuredness but also his ongoing commitment to addressing public concerns regarding his mental acuity, especially given his age. The release of this medical report is significant as it comes amid a broader discussion about transparency in political health disclosures. Historically, presidents have been under no obligation to share their medical records, leading to varying degrees of public scrutiny. This report is a response to persistent calls for transparency, especially from political opponents and health professionals who argue that voters deserve to know the health status of their leaders. As Trump continues his second term, the implications of his health will remain a focal point, particularly as he navigates the challenges of leadership at an advanced age. His active lifestyle, which includes frequent golf outings, has been credited for his well-being, as noted by Barbabella, who remarked on the positive impact of physical activity on Trump's health. Looking ahead, the implications of this report could resonate throughout Trump's political career, affecting public perception and his strategy as he positions himself for potential future electoral contests. As the political landscape evolves, the health of leaders will undoubtedly remain a critical factor in voter confidence and electoral viability. In recent days, allegations of insider trading and market manipulation have emerged against officials from the Trump administration and members of Congress, coinciding with a tumultuous period in the stock market following President Donald Trump's shifting tariff policies. This situation has ignited a broader conversation about the ethical implications of political figures trading stocks while shaping economic policies. On April 2, Trump unveiled a comprehensive tariff strategy that sent markets plunging. Just days later, he announced a rollback of tariffs on most countries aside from China, which led to a brief resurgence in market performance. The rapid fluctuations drew scrutiny, particularly during a congressional hearing where Democratic Representative Stephen Horsford challenged U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Is this market manipulation? Who benefits? What billionaire benefits from this? Horsford asked, highlighting the potential conflicts of interest at play. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez further intensified the discourse by advocating for a ban on congressional stock trading and suggesting that members who had traded stocks in the preceding 48 hours should disclose their actions. "I've been hearing some interesting chatter on the floor," she remarked on social media, implying that insider information may have influenced trading decisions among lawmakers. In response to the mounting accusations, the White House dismissed claims that Trump's posts on social media before the tariff announcements were attempts at manipulating the market. A representative stated, "It is the responsibility of the President of the United States to reassure the markets and Americans about their economic security in the face of nonstop media fearmongering." The Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) defines insider trading as the act of buying or selling securities based on material non-public information. While market manipulation involves artificially affecting the supply or demand for an asset, tactics can include disseminating misleading information or creating the illusion of increased trading activity. The recent surge in accusations against Trump officials stems from notable spikes in market activity following his social media announcements. Senators Adam Schiff and Ruben Gallego raised concerns in a letter to administration officials suggesting that the timing of Trump's posts and the subsequent market rally raised grave legal and ethics concerns. They cited a 9.5% gain in the S&P 500 and an 18% jump in Tesla's stock, co-founded by Trump advisor Elon Musk, as examples of potential conflicts of interest. Despite these allegations, some Republicans, including Representative Carlos Jimenez, have downplayed concerns about market influences, viewing the events as a savvy investment opportunity rather than unethical behavior. "We talked to a major stockbroker from New York, and then one of the things he said was it's time to buy," Jimenez noted. The penalties for insider trading can be severe, with individuals facing up to 20 years in prison for criminal convictions. High-profile cases such as those involving Martha Stewart and Jeffrey Skilling of Enron illustrate the legal repercussions of trading based on non-public information. As the investigation into these allegations unfolds, the implications for market integrity and the ethical standards of lawmakers remain significant. The intersection of politics and finance raises pressing questions about accountability and transparency in an era where the lines between public service and personal profit can become blurred. Looking forward, the ongoing scrutiny of insider trading practices will likely lead to intensified discussions about reforming congressional trading policies to prevent potential conflicts of interest. As the landscape of political influence continues to evolve, the public remains watchful for accountability and ethical governance in the wake of these allegations. As the 2025 political landscape continues to evolve under the leadership of President Donald Trump, recent developments surrounding his health, trade policies, and immigration stance are garnering significant attention. With an increasingly polarized environment, these issues not only reflect Trump's administration but also shape public perception and the broader economic landscape. On April 13, the White House released President Trump's annual physical examination results, marking the first public health accounting since he assumed office as the oldest president in U.S. history. According to Dr. Sean Barbabella, Trump's physician, the president is deemed fully fit to execute the duties of the presidency. The report highlighted several health conditions, including high cholesterol and diverticulosis, both of which are reportedly well managed. The cognitive assessment scored him a perfect 30 out of 30 on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, a standard measure for cognitive function. However, skepticism surrounding the transparency of his health disclosures remains, a sentiment rooted in past discrepancies and guardedness regarding his medical history. Amid this backdrop, Trump's trade policies are drawing scrutiny, particularly following his decision to exempt certain electronics from tariffs that were previously applied broadly to imports from various countries. Senator Elizabeth Warren, in a recent interview, lambasted the administration's tariff strategy as chaos and corruption, questioning the rationale behind applying tariffs to nations without clear justification. Warren's critique underscores a growing concern among economists and the public regarding the potential for inflation and recession tied to these policies. "Donald Trump and the Republicans have basically thrown a bucket of paint across the economy," she remarked, suggesting that the approach lacks coherence and foresight. A CBS News poll adds another layer to this narrative, revealing that while many Americans anticipate short-term price increases due to tariffs, there is a partisan divide on the perceived effectiveness of Trump's policies. Most Republicans believe these measures will ultimately lead to job creation, while a significant portion of the general public fears they will exacerbate inflation and economic instability. The poll highlights a growing discontent with Trump's handling of the economy, with more respondents attributing negative financial outcomes to his policies rather than those of his predecessor Joe Biden. In the realm of immigration, Trump's administration continues to implement stringent measures which have become a hallmark of his governance. The juxtaposition of his health and trade policy performance against the backdrop of immigration reform reflects a complex and often contentious mandate that resonates differently across various demographics. As the political landscape shifts, the implications of Trump's health, trade decisions, and immigration policies will likely influence not only his administration's immediate strategy but also the 2026 midterm elections. The outcomes of these policies may ultimately redefine public trust in economic forecasts, setting the stage for a more critical evaluation of Trump's presidency. With ongoing debates and public sentiment evolving, the coming months will be pivotal in determining whether Trump's administration can navigate these challenges effectively or if they will contribute to further political and economic turbulence. In the unfolding narrative of global economic politics, the United Kingdom's decision to exit the European Union in 2016, often referred to as Brexit, serves as a cautionary tale with echoes in the contemporary United States. As President Trump implements sweeping tariff policies that have sparked economic turmoil, observers are drawing parallels to Brexit's profound impact on Britain's economy and political landscape. Nearly 9 years after the referendum, the ramifications of Brexit continue to reverberate, underscoring a shared theme of economic isolationism that both nations are grappling with. Britain's departure from the EU was marketed to voters as a solution to economic stagnation, a magic bullet that would revive the nation's prosperity. However, the reality has been starkly different. The Office for Budget Responsibility estimates that the UK's trade volume is about 15% lower than it would have been had it remained within the EU. Long-term productivity is down by 4%, and the effects of Brexit have been compounded by subsequent global shocks, including the pandemic and geopolitical tensions arising from the war in Ukraine. Mark Malloch-Brown, a former British diplomat, articulates the dilemma faced by the UK, stating, "If the UK ends up in the arms of Europe because neither of them can work with the US anymore, that's only half a victory." This sentiment reflects a broader anxiety as Britain navigates its post-Brexit identity, balancing the need to rebuild trade ties with Europe against the desire to maintain a favorable relationship with the US. Trump, who championed Brexit and drew parallels between the two movements, has recently faced backlash for his own economic policies, particularly his tariffs. Initially introduced with promises of revitalization for American manufacturing, these tariffs have led to market instability and rising inflation, a sentiment echoed by many in Britain post-Brexit. As the financial markets reacted negatively to Trump's aggressive trade measures, he was forced to reverse some of his decisions in an effort to quell investor unrest. This abrupt shift harkens back to the turmoil experienced under British Prime Minister Liz Truss, who was ousted after her radical tax cuts triggered a sell-off of government bonds. The current landscape in the US reflects similar fears of economic mismanagement. Larry Jacobs, a political analyst, underscores the precariousness of Trump's presidency, suggesting that there are clear indications that Donald Trump's presidency is endangered. The political ramifications of these economic policies may be significant, as evidenced by dwindling support even among traditional Republican voters. In tandem with these developments, a recent CBS News poll reveals a divided sentiment among Americans regarding the long-term impact of Trump's tariffs. While a majority anticipate short-term price increases, many believe that the tariffs are not permanent fixtures but rather tools for negotiation. This reflects a broader uncertainty about the effectiveness of such policies, reminiscent of the skepticism surrounding Brexit's promised economic benefits. The lessons from Brexit continue to loom large as Trump's tariff strategy unfolds. Critics argue that much like Brexit, the notion of economic independence through isolationist policies is fundamentally flawed. Tony Travers, a professor at the London School of Economics, aptly summarizes the situation, stating, "The truth is, Brexit did not correct any of the problems caused by deindustrialization. If anything, Brexit made them worse." As both the US and the UK grapple with the consequences of their respective economic choices, analysts are left to ponder the long-term effects on their political landscapes. The deep divisions within the Conservative Party in Britain, exacerbated by Brexit, raise questions about the potential fate of the Republican Party in a post-Trump era. Just as Brexit has left Britain politically fractured, Trump's tariffs may similarly splinter the Republican coalition, revealing ideological rifts that could shape American politics for years to come. Looking forward, the trajectory of both nations remains uncertain. In Britain, Prime Minister Keir Starmer's administration is tasked with reconciling the economic fallout of Brexit while navigating a new relationship with Europe and the US. Meanwhile, in the US, the ramifications of Trump's tariff policies will likely continue to unfold, affecting not only the economy but also the political fortunes of the Republican Party. As global markets react to these developments, the interconnectedness of today's economies underscores the importance of thoughtful collaborative trade policies over isolationist approaches that risk repeating the mistakes of the past. In a bold move that underscores the ongoing tensions surrounding immigration and border security, President Donald Trump has authorized the U.S. military to assume control of federal lands along the southern border. This directive, issued through a memorandum to key cabinet secretaries, aims to enhance military involvement in what the administration describes as a critical response to an invasion at the U.S.-Mexico border. The memorandum, titled "Military Mission for Sealing the Southern Border of the United States and Repelling Invasions," was released late Friday and directs the Secretaries of Defense, Interior, Agriculture, and Homeland Security to facilitate the transfer of jurisdiction over federal land. The military operations are to be conducted on designated national defense areas, allowing for more robust enforcement of immigration policies. Among the lands earmarked for military control is the Roosevelt Reservation, a narrow strip of land running along the borders of California, Arizona, and New Mexico. Adam Isaacson, Director of Defense Oversight at the Washington Office on Latin America, highlighted the implications of this decision, noting that migrants crossing onto military-controlled land could face more severe legal consequences. They would have trespassed on a military installation, Isaacson explained, potentially subjecting them to charges beyond the typical federal misdemeanor of entry without inspection. Trump's memorandum reflects a continuation of his administration's narrative that the southern border is under siege from a combination of threats. The complexity of the current situation requires that our military take a more direct role in securing our southern border than in the recent past, he stated, reinforcing his stance amid a backdrop of declining illegal crossings. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, encounters with migrants have plummeted significantly, with only 7,200 reported in March, a stark contrast to over 189,000 in the same month the previous year. Despite the notable decrease in crossings, Isaacson raised questions about the necessity of increased military presence, pointing out that current enforcement levels already feature a substantial number of uniformed personnel, approximately 4 to 5 for every apprehended migrant in March. If you've got that kind of presence already, you don't need this additional enforcement, he argued, suggesting that the administration's approach might be more about political optics than practical necessity. As the administration continues to navigate the complex landscape of immigration policy, the implications of this military directive are likely to resonate beyond the immediate border region. With concerns about escalating enforcement measures and the potential for harsher treatment of migrants, advocates and legal experts are closely monitoring the developments, anticipating challenges that could arise in the courts. In conclusion, as the U.S. military prepares to take a more prominent role in border security, the long-term impacts of this decision remain to be seen. With a backdrop of declining illegal crossings and significant military presence already in place, the administration's strategy may evolve as it seeks to balance enforcement with humanitarian considerations. Moving forward, the interaction between military authority and immigration policy will be a pivotal area of focus as the nation grapples with the complexities of border security in an ever-changing political landscape. In the realm of international relations, the role of diplomacy has always been paramount, serving as the bedrock for maintaining interaction and cooperation among states. However, recent events under President Donald Trump's administration have raised critical questions about the state of diplomatic practices and the underlying norms that uphold them. A striking episode occurred during Trump's second term. Encapsulated in his tense meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. This encounter not only highlighted the frictious nature of Trump's diplomatic style but also exposed the fragility of the global diplomatic framework. Kiran O'Mara, a scholar in international relations, delves into these themes in his recent commentary, arguing that diplomacy, often likened to a well-oiled mechanism, has faced unprecedented challenges. O'Mara references Adam Watson's foundational work on diplomacy, which underscores its complexity and necessity for maintaining international society. As he articulates, the essence of diplomacy lies in the recognition of common interests and values among states, forming a cohesive system that fosters dialogue and cooperation. The incident with Zelensky, which unfolded in the Oval Office, serves as a poignant example of how Trump's approach diverges from established diplomatic norms. During their interaction, Trump urged Zelensky to negotiate peace with Russia, bluntly stating, "You're either going to make a deal or we're out." This stark transactional language, coupled with Vice President J.D. Vance's comments on Zelensky's demeanor, culminated in a confrontation that saw Trump admonishing the Ukrainian leader for gambling with the lives of millions of people. The fallout from this encounter was significant, leading to a suspension of military aid to Ukraine and a breakdown of diplomatic relations. The global reaction to this incident was swift and critical. Foreign ministers and commentators alike expressed concern over the implications of Trump's behavior on the prospects for a just and durable peace in the ongoing Russo-Ukrainian conflict. Some analysts even posited that diplomacy itself had met its demise in that moment. A claim O'Mara describes as hyperbolic yet indicative of a deeper truth: the normative foundations of international diplomacy are precariously thin. What transpired in the Oval Office is emblematic of a broader trend in Trump's foreign policy, characterized by abrupt shifts, public spectacle, and a blatant disregard for procedural norms. Unlike previous administrations that adhered to a more nuanced and restrained form of diplomacy, Trump's overtly transactional approach raises questions about the sustainability of international cooperation. O'Mara notes that while differing diplomatic practices have always existed, Trump's willingness to expose the underlying power dynamics of diplomacy could lead to a re-evaluation of expectations and norms among state actors. Moreover, the implications of Trump's rhetoric extend beyond the immediate diplomatic fracas. The relationship between states is often predicated on a shared understanding of conduct, where mutual respect and structured negotiation form the basis of interaction. Trump's deviation from these principles not only jeopardizes bilateral relations but also poses a threat to the very fabric of international society. O'Mara stresses that the institution of diplomacy relies heavily on the belief in its legitimacy and the adherence to established rules by all parties. When one actor flouts these conventions without consequence, it emboldens others to follow suit, potentially catalyzing a broader breakdown of diplomatic norms. In contrast to the tumultuous backdrop of the Zelensky meeting, recent developments concerning Iran suggest that there may be potential for a different diplomatic trajectory. Trump's administration is reportedly preparing for talks with Iranian officials, a significant shift from previous stances that favored military posturing over negotiation. The convergence of interests between the U.S. and Iran, particularly regarding sanctions relief and economic stability, creates an intriguing landscape for diplomacy, albeit one fraught with deep-seated mistrust. As the world watches these unfolding events, it becomes evident that the landscape of international diplomacy is in flux. The Trump-Zelensky incident serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of diplomatic engagement, illuminating how the abandonment of established norms can destabilize the broader international order. However, as O'Mara concludes, this moment in history does not signify the end of diplomacy but rather a critical juncture where new norms and expectations may emerge, reshaping the contours of international relations for years to come. The future of diplomacy hinges not only on formal agreements but also on the unspoken consensus about how states ought to engage with one another, a consensus that remains vulnerable in the face of disruptive leadership.